Item E, 9E, specifically 9E. Recognition of graduates. Alderwoman Cooper.
Yes, what? I didn't say anything.
No, I'm just saying for the benefit of our records.
Oh, okay, thank you.
9E, recognition of graduates, Alderwoman Cooper. That will be your presentation. Is there a motion for approval? Alderwoman Jackson, and then Alderman O'Gara.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I second that motion.
It has been moved that we approve the agenda. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, sign of nay. Item 6, approval of consent items. Alderwoman Jackson.
I make a motion that we approve, the consent items: A, minutes of the April 27, 2020 regular meeting, and B, budget amendment 2024, sale of fire truck.
Alderman O'Gara.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the consent items, minutes of April 27th, regular meeting, and the budget amendment 2024, sale of fire truck. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, sign of nay. Public forum, I understand no one has signed for public forum. We are now ready to hear the old business. Item 8A, resolution 26, disposition of real property. Mr. Tony McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just want to recap on Project Keebler. It's a $1.5 million investment, 75 jobs. And when we look at Project Keebler, it's the construction of 15 new affordable homes for low to moderate income and also the workforce. When you look at also the revenue for the town, and you have a handout there from that Melissa passed around on Project Keebler. The revenue for the town consists of several different things: property taxes, sales tax, power bill, which are roads that are owned by the town, water and sewer revenue, stormwater revenue, and also sanitation collection. When you look at the sheet that I passed out, right now currently you're collecting about $2,100 a year just for land in one blighted house that's on the property. If this project is approved in year one with the sale of the property and the revenue that will be coming in, the town would receive approximately $103,390 in year one. Every year after that, the revenue would be $32,130. So I realized that in previous discussions there were some questions about the project in terms of jobs. And I think that Kingdom CDC has been very conservative in the numbers that they've given, because if you look at each house and you break it down, they're estimating 5 jobs per house, and 5 times 15 is 75. I think that's very conservative. Anyone that is very familiar with the construction process knows that it takes a lot more than 5 people per house to construct a house or remodel a house. When you look at plumbers, you look at electricians, you look at roofers, framers, so on and so forth. It's a lot more than 5, so that's a very conservative number. When you look at also our current state of emergency with COVID-19, the folks being laid off and not having work, to have some money coming in is better than having no money at all. So this gives our citizens an opportunity to go back to work and provide for their families and put food on the table and keep a roof over their head. The other thing I wanted to address is it may be some questions of what's the rush. And I fully understand the question, and the answer is simply this. With our current state of emergency, with COVID-19, and everything that's going on in our community, some folks will believe that there are projections that property taxes may go down because of what's going on with the restaurants. The sales tax will go down. Water and sewer revenue will go down. Stormwater revenue will go down. Sanitation collection will go down. And someone may ask the question, well, how do we change that, Mr. McNeil? The answer is simple: economic development. Now, what does economic development mean? It means you hire a person to increase the tax base and create new jobs in the community. But this discussion is not a debate on whether this is an economic development project or an affordable housing project. Let's simply look at the fact that it increases the tax revenue and the revenue for the town, and it creates jobs. So it doesn't really matter whether it's an economic development project in a general sense or a housing project. It creates revenue for the town and jobs, and we desperately need that right now, Mayor. So what I'd like to do is I would like to recommend to the board, as Mr. Ellis has stated in the last meeting during the resolution, and I'm sure the board is very familiar with the resolution 2026 that was recommended last time. I would like to recommend that the board approve the resolution. Not sure if you'd like it read, Mayor or members of the board, but it's there in your packet for your review. That is the recommendation as far as the disposition of real property moving forward, sir. It's 8 properties that's up for discussion, and in addressing this item and moving forward, we do have the numbers for the assessed value, the number that was actually offered from Kingdom CDC, and the appraised value. I do believe that also the appraisal that was done by Tom Keith and Associates is in the packet as well. So that is my recommendation, Mayor and members of the board, for the proposal from Kingdom CDC with the code name of Project Keeper.
Alderman Sutherland? Yes, I think he called for a question. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a few of them, and the contract is so large and it takes forever to get it. We got these on the server. I understand what's down, but what I can recall is being on the board, and it may be some explanation. If you can give me some explanation on it. There is 8 different lots, and if you look on page 2 of the inspection of the property, and if you look at the map, where the town of Spring Lake map, and it's in pink, right across on Elizabeth Street, the 4 smaller ones, and it's nowhere documented how did the town get these properties, as well as where's the information on those 4 properties right across from Elizabeth Street, and how much did we pay. Going back looking talking about it, I don't see where, and even with the 8 properties that's stating, but if you look, the history of the properties, and I don't know if, sir, if you've been through this right here, it says the 4 different properties here. I know Wellens, we had some with Wellens, and then these here, but these are not the ones, and there's no documentation for these right across from Elizabeth Street stating how did the town acquire these properties. And I know that we had talked about it and it had been approved that if it's right across from the recreation center, that we would utilize it for our town of Spring Lake recreation. Even though when we approved that splash pad, we said for future reference, we wanted it to grow bigger and not just be a splash pad. We wanted it to be for adults as well. So we said that property across from there that we had acquired for the recreation center, and now we want to utilize it for something else, but we had already approved it, and it should be in the approval for that property. So I think it needs to be some more research, and as you stated, what is the rush? I don't know what the timeline is to get these homes built. And also, if it's the Kingdom, it depends on what program are you gonna use, HUD or whatever, because you're talking about the tax value it's gonna bring into the town. Depending on what my qualification would be, if I'm applying for a house, I might not have to pay taxes on it. It depends on what specific, if I'm trying to purchase a home, if it's HUD or it's different programs where the government tries to help the individual that can't afford it, and so the Spring Lake would not get that tax value. So, you know, we didn't take in consideration all of that. I know it sounds great, as well as the jobs, and we talk about COVID-19, and we're using it a lot, and it's serious about individuals who's not getting paid, who do not have money. That's a serious, and I know when the ones was built over there on Chapel Hill Road, it took a few years to have those done. So they didn't just come up, and I did ask that question at the last board meeting, what is the, how long do we think it's gonna take to get these built? Do we have a letter of intent? I mean, what, besides trying to sell it, when are we gonna try to get this done if we wanna push this and talk about the jobs that for individuals of COVID-19 to feed them and all this stuff? Will they start next week if we should get this approved, or what's the timeline?
So let me address, thank you for those questions, Ms. Sullivan. Let me address the first concern. As far as how we got the property, my understanding is that, you know, it was gifted, a portion of it was gifted. The properties that you spoke of across or adjacent to Elizabeth Street are zoned, if you look at Exhibit B, on the town resolution, there are zoned O and I. That designation is basically for office and institutions or agencies. So it would be, those 2 properties would be zoned as such.
4 properties. We're doing 8
Right.
altogether.
But
Talking about
2,
4.
correct, but 2 of the properties are zoned O and I. The rest are zoned R6, which is residential. So it does speak to what you're speaking of in terms of maybe in the past the town had some plans for some of the properties, maybe expanding the splash pad or so on and so forth. So it was a different designation. At some point it changed to O and I, and that would make a lot of
Okay,
sense.
but
That
if
it was,
you're speaking on it, can you please show the documentation so we'll know and we're not just up in the air saying this happened? Because I do know we had approved it for the recreation purposes for the splash pad.
right. The only documentation that I have in the documents that I gave you were the deeds. And so that would relate to sort of the chain of title.
Okay, what page you on? I've documented, page 35. If we go back page 27, what I could, I mean, it's a lot, and I don't know if this was done on purpose.
As you go through the appraisal, and I don't know the exact number, but shortly after the pictures of the different different lots. After you get to the picture of lot 1415 Lee Street East, you'll start seeing some of the deeds.
Right, that's all.
And so with that, the explanation there would be the chain of title of who previously owned it. Again, I was not here during that time. All I can go on is the chain of title and the deeds. And just from talking to the folks that were here that could remember, that it, was, a portion of the property was gifted by Mr. Wellens.
Some was, but not that portion.
Right, and
That's
so.
why I said the Spring Lake should have documentation when it comes to this land. And if we go back and look, we should be able to find the documentation, and then I think it'd be self-explanatory about those portions. Mrs. Gerald wasn't here either. What?
Just bring it in. I don't have a way to bring it in. I don't know this phone.
Let that up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying, it's better than it just being out there in the air.
Right, I
And if this
understand.
is all good,
Mhm.
and it all works, cause we keep good records supposedly,
Right.
good documentation records. And if we have these deeds, then it should be on file somewhere about these documentation. And if it says, on the deed, when it was deeded to us, like what month and year it was deeded to us, do you know that?
I
And
don't,
okay,
but what I would say is.
that's
in
why I said I
looking
can't
at-
remember, and
Right.
somebody else might be able to remember the date, the time, and when it was deeded, that you said that was here, they can remember that. And I just feel more comfortable if we have the documentation that we can see when it was deeded, those portions that I'm talking about, because Wellens, that was some, and then we had some, but these four that I'm talking about, we don't know
So,
about those.
so to answer your question, the deeds would show when it was deeded. And so that, when we look at real
But it's only
estate,
showing four, it's not showing what I'm talking about.
well, each one of the properties has a deed for it. And so that shows the chain of title, which shows the transaction. And so as we look at chain of title for the acquisition or the gifting of the property, it goes back to the deed. And so I, do apologize, I don't know those dates by heart.
Mr. McNeil, let us hear from Mr. Gerald, and then we're going to get, some legal. Okay, Mr. Gerald.
Yes, Mayor, Board of Aldermen, the date of the deed would reflect the date of when the transaction happened, and the rest of the transaction was a deal that the town made between Wellens Realty and the town for unpaid water bill.
Yeah, that was four portions, but we're talking about 8, and it's 8 in here.
Right, and that's, and
But in the
so,
4, it is talking about the deeds on the 4.
Right.
But the 4 that I'm talking about right across from Elizabeth Street, the way it said it was gonna be for the splash pad and the pool maybe, if we was gonna get,
Right.
that's not in here.
yes, those 4 are in there. If you look at your, let me give you a page.
But if we already.
All eight properties are in, and if, I'm not sure about the gifted part, I'm not here, but I know, I wasn't there, but I do know the parcels were given, a large majority, to offset the water bill. So that is how the town acquired the property.
So we should have documentation stating
Yes, that, the town does have documentation.
Where is it at?
It's here. I mean, it's
That-
in your, it's in your.
Oh, it's in here?
It's
What-
in your, it's in your, I mean,
Can
it's
you
in your
just tell me
packet.
what page, where Wellens deeded that to us and it was called for water? I didn't see that one.
No, that is not in here.
Oh, that's what I'm asking.
The deed is in here where we were deeded the property. I'm giving you background references where the property was deeded. The clerk would have to have kept up with that property.
Well, she can probably tell us, I inquired
And it
She
would
couldn't-
probably
she couldn't
be the
find
clerk, need to be the clerk of record who was here at that time.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem.
In the document, there's a section that's titled History of the Property.
yeah, I see that.
On page 1, I think that has a lot of the history of the property. Is there one on here that you want to see?
No, it's not in there, not across from what I'm talking about. I'm asking that it was already allotted. And if he's saying that Wellens gave it to us, so it tells us the history of it, then I was trying to find that I didn't see, and I don't know if our town attorney has already went through that. We're talking about 8 parcels that you have documented here, and it does have history, which I have highlighted, and it's got different amounts here. Moorhead Street, Lot 1, and then it corresponds back here with the, some of the photos, but those across, there was not corresponding with the deeds and stuff, the one on the Lister Street that we had already said that we was gonna utilize for the splash pad. And to make it bigger, because that's why we only want to put a smaller amount. So I just don't know how we could already have it allotted for something, and now we're gonna go back because we don't have the documentation saying, and if the clerk, whatever clerk it was, then we should be able to go back and get it, because when it comes to property, we don't lose that. It still kept on file. I mean, it's a lot, that's why I'm saying I might be overlooking something, but that first page, I went through that, certainly, and then I went to, if you go page 27, go back to page 35. I'm just trying to see, we did inquire some from Wellens, but not all of it.
Is it possible, now, let me just ask this as a layperson. Now, we have tax ID, tax PIN number that identifies the property. Okay, and there are 8 of them identified. The first being 0501469395. Now, is it customary that there's a deed that accompanies this tax ID PIN number? And that tax ID would tell us who, I think the term is the grantee, meaning the owner. So Spring Lake would own all 8 of these properties. Now, we have the deed for 4.
That's right.
Right.
That's
And that means the other 4 deeds are available somewhere.
That's my point.
And your point is you want to see all 4 deeds.
Right, because if we're gonna be approving that, and that's what you bringing to us for 8 properties, there's only 4 in here. So we can't do any action on all 8 if we don't have stated the deeds was here, but all of them are not in here, and the 4 that I'm talking about, they're not here.
Okay, now that point is taken. Any others? Anyone else?
I was thinking that, the properties belong to us.
Sounds Spring Lake.
Right. We have the option of doing what we would like to do with these properties. As far as the splash pad goes, we have a splash pad there. And it looks like we're going in a different direction. So I kind of feel like, we need to move on with this. And, with all due respect, man, that's
I just want the correct documentation, sir. I mean, you said 8 parcels. And if you present it to us, and we're gonna make some type of legal move, it's the town of Spring Lake's property, taxpayer dollars, then we should, all documentation for all those 8 parcels should be here. But it did state that's what we're gonna use it for. I mean, if y'all wanna change it, we go back and change it, but I don't know, how do you do that when you go back and change it when you already have said that's what you're gonna utilize it for? And the citizens came out and approved it as well, and that's what we promised to the citizens, and that's what we put in the newspaper, and that's what we ran on, that splash pad and making it bigger.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm confused why the deed is an issue. Is there a concern of encumbrances? Do you think there's something restricting these deeds? Like, why is the need to have deeds so relevant to the disposition of this property?
Yes, sir.
It might be helpful for me to tell the board what I know and what I don't know about these property transactions. I have seen the deeds that convey each of the parcels to the town. They are all on record, and I don't have my title list with me, but I looked up the deeds. Some of the deeds convey more than one parcel. Some of the ones that you see copies of in these materials. One of them conveyed 4 of the lots, for example, and that's common. I have not seen written documentation about exactly how and why the town acquired the property, but from what I hear from the staff, the pattern of the conveyances between 2007 and 2017 is certainly consistent with what I hear, that the town acquired these to settle outstanding debts to the town, either water and sewer bills or property tax obligations. That probably is what happened. That probably is why the properties were conveyed. Deeds were conveyed into the town with respect to all 8 lots. Now, I doubt, frankly, that a title search was done at the time to make sure that the town actually was acquiring full, unencumbered, marketable title. And certainly, I have not done a title search since this came up. I have talked some to the attorney in Fayetteville, Ann Evans, whose name you all know, who has been representing the town in other property transaction matters, and I've discussed it with her. And specifically about the types of deeds that if the board sees fit to authorize this resolution, the town then would use to convey the lots to Kingdom CDC. Let me say, and I said this at the last meeting, I don't have an opinion about whether the board ought to convey the property in this way, it's called private sale, to this buyer for this price, for this purpose. My job is to tell you that the board has authority to do it, and you can call it what you want. You can call it affordable housing, you can call it economic development. It is both, but your authority to convey the property in this way, by private sale if you choose to do it, to this nonprofit corporation, is because it is for the purpose of affordable housing. It's those statutes combined with the property transaction statutes that give the board authority to sell this town-owned property if you choose to do it. And obviously, it is entirely reasonable, if you all view it that way, to take action with 8 lots that are now just sitting in town ownership, not being used for any productive purpose, and try to generate some activity to build and sell safe, affordable housing to families. With respect to the property tax question, if and when single-family homes are built on the tracts by this grantee, the buyer, Kingdom Community Development Corporation, the property, the lots and the homes on them will be subject to property tax. Not exempt, they will be subject to property tax. Town of Spring Lake and Cumberland County. Happy to answer other questions.
As if we can't do the economic development portion. It has to be,
There are elements of economic development, as Mr. McNeil said. The purpose is affordable housing. It is because it's affordable housing that you have the authority to sell the property in this way if the board chooses to do it. That doesn't mean there are not elements of economic development, but the legal authority comes because it's generating construction of affordable housing units.
Alderman O'Gara.
Taking into consideration what the attorney just said, I'd like to make a motion that resolution 2026.
Excuse me.
I'm making a motion, you don't mind, do you?
Please.
I've not had a chance to speak.
Resolution 2026, disposition of real property. There's no motion.
The motion is on the floor.
I'm ready.
Mayor, I never had a chance to speak.
I'm ready.
We're going to give you a chance to speak after the motion, the second. We always do that.
I'm confused, so do we do a second now?
Yes, please.
I second that motion.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Now, there's an unreadiness. Now, Alderwoman, Cooper?
Thank you.
Yes.
So I had a question about the, 75 jobs. Those aren't long-term, are those long-term jobs or just jobs for the benefit of, building the homes? And, what was the average, I'm sorry, how much time would, Kingdom have to, close the sale of the properties? And we would have that in the contract.
To answer your first question, those are jobs associated with the, length of the project. Those would not be long-term jobs, but they're jobs, for the citizens. And again, as I said before, there's a lot of layoffs in the community. And so to have some money coming in is better than no money. And it, will allow a person to put food on their table.
Okay, so are you saying that you're expecting all of those homes to be built at the same time?
What I'm saying is that I would have to give the board a timeline from Kingdom CDC regarding when was the timeline of those houses being built. They could possibly be built very close to each other, but I don't want to speak for Kingdom CDC. So I will, get a timeline from Mr. Manning.
Well, Mr. Manning just sitting in the parking lot, he wasn't coming in?
Hold on. We're trying to entertain all.
So then, and how much time, are we gonna have a certain amount of time that the payment has to be tendered for the properties?
Ms. Cooper, Mr. Hanks has raised his hand. Can you, allow him?
Mm-hmm.
Go? Yes.
Sure.
I can answer part of Alderwoman Cooper's question about time and about what happened. The unstated part of that question is what happens if Kingdom CDC purchases the properties, the transactions close, and then they don't start construction. So let me talk to you a little bit about what's in the resolution and what will be in the contract of sale that will follow next if the board adopts this resolution to authorize the manager to follow through with the property transaction. I've tinkered with this resolution some since you all saw it at your previous meeting because more information has come to my attention. I'll mention the zoning issue in a second that Mr. McNeil just talked about, but specifically the timing of the construction by Kingdom CDC if the town sells the property to them. I did some research, took me back to my first year property class. Mr. Z's will remember more about this than I do, but what I propose in this resolution, and it will be in the contract if you all approve this resolution, is for the town to convey the property to Kingdom CDC under what's called a fee simple determinable title, and that means that you impose a condition. It's called a condition subsequent, requiring, clearly stated in the contract, and then in the deeds for the properties, requiring Kingdom CDC to use the property for construction of affordable housing, as that term is defined, and it is clearly defined in the statutes. What's the timeline? What I put in here is this, and you all can instruct me to change this if you want, but if you will look at page 2 of the resolution, and you look at those, and you look at the therefore paragraphs, and there are 9 of those. Let me just quickly run through those therefore paragraphs at the end of this resolution. Paragraph 1 just lists the 8 lots by tax parcel number and a short description of each lot. Number 2 sets out the sale price. That's the price the Kingdom CDC offered. You can change that if you want. If you notice, I mean, now that we have an appraisal report in hand, that offer price is not far from the estimated, fairly subjective, always is subjective, estimated fair market value from our appraiser. It's about $1,800 different, which is a close approximation of what the appraiser says the fair market value is. Paragraph 3 says these conveyances are for the purpose of a housing project, construction of affordable homes. Number 4 says, in furtherance of that purpose and that restriction, the agreement that will follow this shall state clearly that the obligation of the buyer to build those affordable homes is a material term and of the essence to the agreement. Number 5, this is where we get into this condition subsequent and this potential reversion if they don't start construction on the homes. What this says is that we convey by special warranty deeds, we convey not full unencumbered title, we convey a defeasible fee simple title on a condition subsequent. Specify that if construction of at least one single family home in accordance with the requirements of the preceding paragraph, that means affordable housing, has not commenced within 1 year of the date of conveyances, then title to the property shall be deemed to have reverted to the town. Now, it requires the town to do a couple of procedural things to trigger that. You may re-enter and repossess the property after the town has sent a certified mail return receipt requested letter to the buyer saying 1 year has passed. You have not started construction on the first home. We're hereby notifying you that title has now, under the agreement and the deeds, reverted to the town. So, Kingdom CDC, you no longer own the property, the town now owns the property again by operation of law. And then you go record that letter.
That's the default, right?
That's a default. That is a default by the buyer of a material term of the agreement, which triggers a reversion to the town.
You did good.
Well, I had to go back and remind myself. But that's what this resolution says. And to make it, and to spell it out even more so, the agreement, paragraph 6 says, we're gonna go beyond that, and we're gonna require the buyer as a condition in that agreement and in the deeds to, as soon as he receives that notice letter, if they've defaulted, they are required to execute deeds reconveying the property. Doesn't really matter if they do that. Town, under that reversion, owns the property, but I would rather them sign those deeds, get those deeds on record so there's never any question that the town has reacquired title.
That's all I'm saying.
So, number 7, because 2 of the lots, turns out, are not currently zoned residential, they're zoned O&I, which does not let, I believe, staff says does not allow residential construction.
That's correct.
Right, it's got to go through planning, right?
To consummate this process, if you choose to do it, the board, in your legislative discretion, has to follow through with the regular process to rezone those lots to R6. So this says,
Okay.
we state in this resolution the board's obligation to continue the process, and you either do or you don't. If you don't follow through and rezone the property, then no transaction, because 2 of the lots are then unavailable for residential purposes. And paragraphs 8 and 9 just state the procedural requirements that are necessary if you all approve this resolution. Statutes say that the town clerk has to publish a notice, and then you have to wait 10 days to see whether anybody is upset or not.
And that is this 2026.
Sir?
So Mr. Hankins, so there's nothing in there that says that they have a certain amount of time to make the payment, correct?
It says that they must begin construction on at least one home within 12 months after they acquire title to the property.
No, but I was talking about to make the payment for the land.
Oh, there would be a closing.
Is there a certain amount?
There would be a closing,
Mm-hmm.
on the transaction, just like any other real estate closing, and they would be required under the contract to pay the town cash from wherever they get it. Of that agreed upon purchase price, $71,260, sitting right there at the closing.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Jackson, and then Alderwoman Sutherland. No, she had a question before we allowed Mr. Hankins to clarify, Alderwoman Sutherland's question. She did second, but as the unreadiness was in place, Alderwoman Cooper spoke, and then, the attorney raised his hand, and I felt like let's hear from him, but you still have the right to, have your say, and then Alderwoman Sutherland.
The attorney answered 95% of my questions, so you did good on that. But I do have one, I guess I could wait to ask, and this is just for knowledge purpose, why are we giving them a time limit on when they should start building on that property? If they bought it, why is there a time limit on it? Why is that important?
You don't have to do that, but my reasoning was, if the board is going to sell this property to them, nonprofit corporation, for the express purpose of their building affordable housing, it makes some sense to give them a deadline to at least start the project. You don't have to do
To
that.
make sure that it's gonna be done, is that
Right.
what I'm saying?
I mean, you don't have to do it. You
No, I
can
just-
make it a shorter or a longer period of time. You can add more homes. You can say they have to have started construction on at least 4 of the lots within a year or 2 or whatever. And all that is entirely up to you all.
I think they're 1 in a year, because if they wanna do it, they're gonna do it. So the 1 a year is good. I didn't know if there was a specific reason.
I saw that as at least they're demonstrating good faith
Yes.
and intention to start and then continue the project.
And that year will give them time in case something happens that's unforeseen.
They normally build one at a time.
Alderwoman Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think it's brought before us because the purpose is for us to sell it to them for affordable homes. So wouldn't it be that we want to look out for our citizens or whoever else, or those jobs or those taxes that you was talking about, to keep it in the contract? Because we've sold a property before and it was in, if they default, then it goes back to the town, because if we don't, and we doing this at this type of price, and the reason being is for the affordable homes, we wouldn't want them to take 10 years for affordable homes, because how's it gonna benefit to help our citizens by these jobs that you're talking about? That means that those jobs is not gonna be there, because we got one home a year, then we let them do 10 years, so where's your 75, and where's the money that you're talking about, the town is gonna recoup? So all that is, then if that's the case, then we'll take all this other stuff out of there, because it could be 10 years before they build another one, 8 years, because if they do 1 a year, depending on how they doing it, what's the use in talking about the taxes the town is gonna have, the jobs the town is gonna have, all that just becomes obsolete. Because it's just sitting there, and even though they're gonna use it, but, so I just feel like it needs to be clarification, something in there, if that's the reason why this presentation, and the reason why you're trying to sell this is for affordable homes, it does need to be some language in there that we would like to see this done in a timely manner. not trying to rush them in 30 days, but still not giving them, if you got 8 partials, we're not gonna give them 8 years, 1 a year, because, again, no jobs, no taxes, or anything that you're stated of your presentation. Anyway, thank you.
Alderman Jackson.
Ms. Hammond, I wanna say thank you, that was good in your wording, cause it was all new to me, explained everything. And I like the fact that it's a one single home in a year, but I'm having faith in Kingdom, in them, that they're gonna do what they're supposed to do with all the great things they have already done. And he has, that nonprofit has demonstrated that they have Spring Lake in their best interest. So I'm not even worried about them not doing it, cause they're gonna do it. They have done so much and so good to this community as well, giving a lot of people, I know a lot of people that live on the Chapel Hill Road that are very thankful for a chance to, come up, as they would say. So I appreciate you explaining that. You did that very well. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. I should have added, I've had one lengthy conversation about this, with Mr. Manning, about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe. And so I have a general understanding, at least, of how they are approaching this, and they are serious about it.
Yeah, well, they have homes behind Main Street as well, they look nice, those apartments.
Right.
On those Kingdom, Mr. Gerald,
Ma'am?
those on Main Street, behind over there, those apartments,
Yes, ma'am.
those
Yes,
are some
ma'am.
that they built as well. So, never saying they weren't gonna do anything with the community, I'm just saying, we always have to do our due diligence as well. Thank you.
It's totally silent. You've heard the motion. Resolution 2026, disposition of real property, has been moved and properly second. All in favor of the signing of this disposition, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the sign of nay?
Nay.
4 ayes and 1 nay.
Now, is that with the correction that you talked about in this, resolution? So,
That is the resolution.
That is. Well,
right,
it's
so,
passed
but
now.
you're saying, no, I understand, I just think it's a question.
Go
No, it's
ahead.
good, it's
Yeah.
passed.
Hmm?
I just want to know what you stated. Everything stays the same. If it's not done within the year, then it converts back to the town, because that is the resolution.
Those provisions are in the resolution.
There are one
I
single
have
home
added
that's been
them.
done in a year, not all of them, just one.
Start of construction
Of one
of
home.
one of the homes on one of the lots within 1 year.
So those jobs, won't be available, the taxes won't be available for the town. Is that right?
He's not saying that.
No, I'm
If
saying,
if the home is built in 30 days, then taxes would be available to the city in
Yeah,
30
30 days.
Yes. That's just the way it is.
okay, I'm just trying to understand.
But
what you're saying.
12
1 year.
months, 12 months to the date from the time he signed the agreement is the time that a home ought to be what?
Started
Bill.
off. Started.
Start, okay, correct, start.
Alright,
All right. Okay, Alderman O'Gara and then Alderwoman, Cooper.
I think we're doing something that's gonna benefit the town and benefit the citizens. And it's gonna enhance the appearance of that part of the town. And, I can tell you from my past dealings with Carl Manning, since he had his office down in Fayetteville when he was working out here on houses, that, he'll build one, and then build the next one, or he'll build one to a certain portion, and continue with that, and start on the next one. He's a house builder. You'll be happy with what you see. Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Mayor, let me just explain what I am going to do now that the board has approved the resolution. I will go back to the agreement. Remember, there was a draft of that in your previous agenda package. I have not tinkered with it anymore since I improved this resolution. I need to get back to the draft of that agreement and add these provisions, clarify some things, make the agreement fully consistent with this resolution you have just approved. The resolution authorizes and directs the town manager to execute that agreement with Kingdom CDC and get on with the property transaction. Once I finish the drafting work on that agreement, I'm gonna hand it in, before I leave office as your town attorney, I'm gonna hand that off to Ann Evans, who is going to handle the property transactions. She will draft the deeds with that reverter language in the deeds, everything that the resolution says, and she will help the town get the transactions closed.
So the other 4 deeds, you'll be able to get those at that particular time as well, so that's why when we approve stuff, I like stuff to be all on point and everything together, because now it was not in the motion, but I think what you said should have been as well in the motion what you just stated, but we just made a blanket motion, so that's why a lot of times it's confusing again with me, because that should have been in the motion what you just stated. But anyway, y'all made the motion.
In the meantime, move forward to have the O and I rezoned in the meantime.
Yes.
Is that premature for?
It's not premature, that probably ought to be initiated by the staff for the board's consideration.
That would have been done first from the office until planning. That's why I'm saying it was just a little confusing. Normally it's already zoned
Right.
residential, but we've approved this for residential, but it's still, we have not taken it to planning. That's what I'm saying, stuff was not in order.
That is not correct. So what we did, the request for the zoning came into my office. That request did not have to come to the board. I am the zoning officer. That particular request didn't have to come to the board. So we sent over the documentation, with the application that Mr. Manning sent in with the request to change the OI to R6. And I signed off on it. And that
So
was
the zoning
done.
doesn't come
And then
before the board anymore?
Not all of them.
So
It only
which one?
there's only certain ones. I don't know, I have to look.
But this, you said this one
That one did.
does not have to come
That
before the
one did
board
not.
through planning.
No, it did not. That one didn't have to come to the board. So that one came to me as zoning officer. I had the authority to sign it. Then it went back over to planning. We filled out the application to planning. We do our contract planning through Cumberland County. So if I would have done it wrong, Cumberland County would have sent it back.
Right.
So, that was done correctly. And in addition to this, I was looking at the plat, and the plat does seem to match the description of the deed. If you look, they're not numbered, but if you look at your plat page, the plat is the map. It shows the original parcels without tract 3 being subdivided. Then it shows tract 3 being subdivided. And I believe these
Are you talking about your BK 75 PG,
go-
72 plat?
Yeah, that's it, plat book. So if you go back to the plat book, you see the original as is, then you see the dividing line of lot 3. So I believe one of the descriptions refers to one of the lots, or 2 of the lots as a tract, am I right?
I got that highlighted.
That's what it looks like.
Got all this stuff.
So that's what it looks like. So when you do, and I used to do forestry work, so when you look at the minutes and how stuff run, you have to line it up with what the reference point was.
Right.
So a lot of the reference points are coming off of one point. So that's why you're seeing lot 3, because lot 3 may have been the reference point off of the survey. So everything goes back to a reference point.
And the other fact is Miss Ann Evans' job and responsibility to the town.
Right.
So everything's gonna line up and everything's gonna work out. Let us, please move on. The resolution has been agreed upon by the board by a vote of 4-1. So, new business,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you, Ms. McNeil as well. Did you get Mr. Wade on the line yet?
Yes, everyone's here, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Wade is going to give us an update on the 2020 census. Dr. Wade, hello.
Good afternoon, Mayor Donald. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Robbins, Mayor Pro-Tem, Aziz, and members of the Spring Lake Board of Aldermen. It is my honor as co-chair of the Cumberland County Complete Count Committee to come before you to share information involving the 2020 census. My sincere thanks to Mayor Dowling for extending the invitation to do so. I will be joined this evening by several members of the committee, the steering committee to the Complete Count Committee, as well as community partners who also will make brief comments related to the topic. And that will include U.S. Census Bureau Partnership Specialist Sharon Covington, Area Recruitment Manager and Group Quarters Manager Joanne Bass, and North Carolina Coalition Community Engagement Coordinator Nakia Smith. And I don't know if Ms. Smith, Ms. Covington, if you can show your video, please feel free to do so. I know I got you by voice. Even though COVID is first and foremost on our minds, the county's Complete Count Committee is still working to enhance awareness of the importance of completing the census. The information that we will share with you this evening is updated information that was also shared on May the 1st at the Cumberland County Mayor's Coalition Zoom meeting. For the elected officials of our local municipalities, the census is clearly important because it's directly related to several items. Number one, political representation in Washington. Second, economic and business development. And most importantly, ensuring that correct data is provided to get the municipalities in Cumberland County their fair share of millions of dollars in federal aid each year. My committee co-chair, Rawls Howard, who is also the Director of Planning and Inspections for Cumberland County, wasn't able to be with us today, this evening. However, he asked me to share this information on his behalf. So, as of May the 10th, the national response rate for the census is 58.6%. In North Carolina, that self-response rate is 54.7%. In Cumberland County, we are number 39 out of 100 in terms of our response rate. We're right at 53.4%. And as of May the 10th, Spring Lake's response rate is at 42.6%. There are a few timelines that have been extended. I want to share those with the board. First, because of the restrictions that the pandemic has placed upon us, the self-response deadline for residents has been extended to October the 31st. Ms. Bass, who also serves as the group quarters manager dealing with our military installation, whether it be Fort Bragg or Pope Army Airfield, will speak a little more on group quarters, but that enumeration deadline has also been extended to September the 3rd. We also have a timeline for something known as update leave, which is where census takers drop off invitations to respond and paper questionnaires at the front doors of households while updating the addresses. That start date has been extended to July the 9th. And the non-response follow-up to update leave has also been extended to October the 31st. Inside Cumberland County, this was also an opportunity to provide work for many of our residents. Census jobs, they run the range of a lot of different positions, whether it be census takers themselves, whether it be office operations individuals, supervisors, managers, clerks. A range of jobs are required on the ground to ensure that this gets off and runs as smoothly as possible. We actually exceeded our employment numbers, and we wound up initially with 3,600 individuals in applications. However, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we had individuals who backed away from that commitment, primarily because they were concerned about their health and well-being, as well as that of their families. And so, we've been reduced from 3,600 to around 2,400 applicants, once again, because of the period of COVID. So as a result, we are continuing recruitment, and Ms. Bass, as the area recruitment manager, will also speak on that particular piece. It's important at this particular time to highlight again the multitude of things that census data affects, including but not limited to helping our communities get their fair share of the more than $675 billion per year in federal funds spent on schools, hospitals, roads, public works, and other vital programs. According to the State Office of Budget and Management in North Carolina, the combination of federal and state funds that comes into our community comes out to $1,828 per person. That highlights why we want to ensure our count is correct so that we can get our fair share of those monies. I did an analysis, just take some census tracts in the county and looked at how we would be impacted in the county if we undercounted, by say 13,980 individuals. That undercount translates into roughly 24 million plus a year. And because the census is only done once every 10 years, simple math, 10 times that. So as a result, that's why it is vitally important to keep it moving in terms of trying to get the count out. And this is why, even though the pandemic has slowed our efforts, we have not stopped. We've continued to perform our tasks and responsibilities. And I'll share a little bit of information with you on that particular issue. First and foremost, one of the things I neglected to mention is during public health disasters, whether it be hurricanes, which we normally get on an ongoing basis every year, or the public health crisis like the pandemic, this correct census data is critical to ensure that our public health operations are funded appropriately, and it also allows us to predict more accurately how such events will impact children with families as well as our senior citizens. So, because of the restrictions on in-person and in-group interaction due to the pandemic, a lot of outreach has been done virtually through print, broadcast, and social media. This includes marketing and outreach efforts through public service announcements, or PSAs, on the county government's, Cumberland County government's TV channels, as well as the City of Fayetteville's TV channels. The City of Fayetteville has actually earmarked a fair amount of money specific to the pandemic, and their investment actually benefits every municipality inside the county. So right now, you've got an ad that's running, a half-page ad that's running in the Fayetteville Press, because our communities of color tend to be our hard-to-count communities. They always have been historically. And as such, this year, we're actually placing a half-page color ad in the April-May edition of the Fayetteville Press. The city is also contracted with Spanish language television station Univision to air a great census PSA for our Spanish-speaking residents to highlight that no matter where you're from, your nationality, your immigration status, or with whom you live, everyone counts in the census. We've also purchased airtime through Cumulus Broadcasting, Magic 1069, WFNC, WCLN. We've also done WIDU 99.7 as well as WIDU 1600. We've done Boulevard, we've done WRAL, up and coming, and we've also done social media. And so those are just some of the ways that the actions that are continuing by the Complete Count Committee with the help of city and county government will create a heightened awareness which will benefit residents throughout the county, to include the residents of Spring Lake. At this time, I'd like to yield the floor to my colleagues from the U.S. Census Bureau, Ms. Sharon Covington and Ms. Joanne Bass, for their comments. Ms. Covington, Ms. Bass?
I want to Dr. Wade and Council, Aldermen. How are you doing this evening? This is Sharon Covington with the U.S. Census Bureau. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right, Dr. Wade?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm never quite sure sometimes. Thank you for inviting us to come and give you an update on what's occurring with the census. We are currently in the self-response phase, where individuals are encouraged to complete their census either by the questionnaire they have received in the mail or by going to the 2020 census.gov website and completing it online, or by calling the 1-844-330-2020 toll-free number to be able to access it if they don't have broadband available. But we are in that self-response phase, and I would just like to ask you to continue to encourage the population of Spring Lake and the surrounding area to respond to the census so that we can continue to increase our numbers. As Dr. Wade has said, we've had an increase, and we've shown a pretty steady increase over the last couple of weeks, and I'd like to see that continue. Thank you so much. But that was all I had, is just continue to encourage the self-response, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Joanne Bass. I think Ms. Bass was having some audio trouble, so please let us know if you can't hear her. But thank you again so much, and I'm available if you need me at any point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to attend. We truly appreciate all of the efforts everyone is putting into the count this year. It's good for the next 10 years, so we need to do everything we can to be accurate and complete. One of the things that I do want to update you on is group quarters. And group quarters would, of course, encompass your group living arrangements, be it Fort Bragg, a nursing home, a foster home. Those items are being taken care of at this point. With Fort Bragg, the DOJ and the officials on Fort Bragg are actually doing what's called an e-response. So they are handling all of their information through e-response, as well as their families that may move. Excuse me, again, one of the things that you may see in the military is if a spouse is deployed, the family generally moves back to the community that they came from or where they have a family support system. But they do still keep their address on Fort Bragg, and we want to utilize those counts in our e-response. So we are diligently working with the officials on Fort Bragg and the DOJ to get those numbers as accurate as possible. The other thing, Dr. Wade had mentioned the update we leave, where we go around and leave you a paper response to fill out. Great news, the update leave was actually able to start today in our ACO and in the Charlotte ACO. So update leave has officially started as of 8 a.m. this morning. So there are people out in your communities doing what we call no contact update leave. So we will walk up to a home, we'll verify the address, and we will tag the door. We will not knock, we will not engage anyone. And of course we are utilizing our PPE to make sure that if someone does happen to come to the door or engage us, we are safe for ourselves and for the community. So that has started early. Our next big operation will be non-response follow-up. So the more people we get to e-respond or self-respond now, the less workload we will have to do and the less communication we will have to have with the public. One of the things that we were going to do prior to the pandemic was what we called mobile question. This would be very mobile and in your communities, stores, libraries, any type of facility where people would go and helping them fill out their questionnaires. We have now transitioned that to a census questionnaire assistance, which is strictly by a phone. So if anyone has any questions or they need help filling out their census, they can call the 800 number that Sharon quoted earlier, and we will assist them over the phone. So that's a great way to let your communities know that if they want to participate in the census, and they don't want someone at their door, they can go right on the phone, make a phone call. Sometimes they may need to leave a message and we'll call them back. It'll ask for their name, phone number, and the best time to call them back at. And then they'll get a phone number from a census phone number. The caller ID should register Census Bureau. So that's one way you can get your citizens who are concerned about people coming to their homes to self-respond now before we do transition into our non-response follow-up. Now, as you heard, Dr. Wade also mentioned that we have jobs. Cumberland County did a phenomenal job. It was one of only 4 of my 15 counties that was able to reach their 100% of goal, and it had the largest goal out of all 15 counties. But due to the pandemic, we have lost several candidates only for concern of their own safety or for family member safety. So we are continuing to recruit. These are part-time or full-time jobs. They do pay $17 an hour. And for some families, this would be a great time to get some extra income, especially if they're perhaps in a retail job or a restaurant job or a non-essential business where they're not currently working or haven't worked. And if they do happen to go back to work, they're allowed to update their availability weekly. So this makes a great second job because these do last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks long, each operation that we do. Anyone can go online to 2020census.gov/apply and apply for these jobs that are $17 an hour. And the turnaround time at this point will be rather quick because we are in the middle of the operation. They can also go to the 2020census.gov to look for ways to self-respond, either e-response or with the phone assist for the census questionnaire assistance. That's all I have for this evening. If you guys have any questions, I'm sure Sharon, Dr. Wade, and myself would be glad to answer anything you might have.
Thank you, ma'am. And last but not least is Ms. Nakia Smith with the North Carolina Council Coalition. Ms. Smith.
Hi, my name is Nakia. I'm with Density Council Coalition. For those that may be unfamiliar with what that is, we are a nonpartisan, cross-sector hub. We work with government entities and anything to your small businesses, trying to get people to participate in census level efforts. We recognize that, especially counties like ours, we rely on trusted messengers to get words across or to get messages across. So that's where my job comes in, trying to work with different organizations to try to get those trusted messengers to help us get a more effective count here in Cumberland County. My specific targets, while I want us to have a great count overall, my specific targets, I'm employed here for the hard to count communities. That includes your African American, Latin American, Native American, renters, immigrants, and children under 6. Yes, people are forgetting to count their babies on the census. So it's my job here to work with agencies that work directly with those communities so that we can help get the message out that the census is important, you should do it, so we can try to up our count here in Cumberland County and be more effective and just be great for the next 10 years and beyond. That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. And again, on behalf of the Complete Count Committee and our partner agencies, we sincerely thank the Spring Lake Board of Aldermen for their generosity in allowing us to come before you this evening to provide this update. This concludes our presentation, subject to your questions.
Yes, sir. Alderwoman Sutherland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for your presentation. Question for you. You were talking about the advertisement. There is advertising on BET as well. Very good advertisement. But my question, per household, how many mail-outs, because there are mail-outs that are being sent out, as well as once you've completed it, if you complete it on the internet, are they still mailing you the mail-outs? Is it accountability? Is somebody keeping track of it? Because I think we've completed ours, but we're still receiving mail-outs So when do they stop mailing them out? I think I have about 4 and we've already completed it. And what is the deadline for this to be completed, the census?
Okay. Ms. Covington?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Dr. Ray. The Census Bureau, like many of the other agencies, experienced this COVID pandemic and threw a little wrench into the schedule plans. So I would say that there was already in place scheduled mailers to go out along behind the actual invitation. And then there was the questionnaire, and then there's the reminder, and those were already on a schedule, so I'm certain that you've probably got more than one, even if you did go online, because the questionnaires had a unique identifier that geocoded your address in with the completion of your census. And so if your geocode has not been entered and matched in the system, you would continue to get one until they're able to get all of that cross-reference. But we encourage everybody to apply, whether it's online or by the phone. We'd rather have duplicate or too much information, because we do have systems in place that will go through the data and remove any duplications. But we just don't want to miss anybody. The most important thing is getting that accurate count for Cumberland County. We want to make sure that all those federal dollars that should be coming our way make it here. And it's just very important for our community that we have that accurate count. So I apologize on behalf of the Bureau if you've received several extra mailings reminding you. If you want to share them with your neighbors to remind them, that would be great. But we apologize if it's been any type of agitation to any of the population. It's just, there was already on a schedule, and then we had to pick up with the adjusted dates as well.
Okay,
So thank you for the question.
one,
I hope I answered your question adequately.
my question, so 1 per household is sufficient, is that correct? You said the GO
That
code.
is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes ma'am. Thank you.
Alderman O'Gara has a question
Uh,
or statement.
yes, the young lady just asked, what was the end date? The final date for this?
The end date for the self-response will be October 31st. That's an extended date. That is for the self-response. But there are operations like the update lead that Ms. Bass was speaking of, the group quarters, because, we have the different segments of the population. But the self-response, we continue to encourage you to act now. Avoid the knock. Go ahead and complete it online or by phone or mailing it in, just to avoid that knock, to act now and to go ahead so that we can use those resources to find those folks that absolutely are having more difficulty or they're not wanting to respond. We can try to work more with those hard to count populations, as Ms. Nakia Smith was talking about a while ago.
Ma'am, is that the normal stretch time that you do on a yearly basis? Every 10 years you go from like January to October?
No, sir, it is not. The extension has been adjusted because of the COVID pandemic, because we went into the same operation mode as most agencies around March, whenever we received, the orders to stay at home, work from home, trying to reduce that contact with the public, to stop the spread. So we did receive that extension because we're concerned, and the Bureau is concerned that we want to get that accurate and complete count. So we've received that extension for the self-response follow-up portion. We're just waiting on the additional instruction, whether or not we would be able to extend past the 12/31 deadline to present all of those results to our president and our Congress and Senate.
Okay.
So we won't know that yet. We're still waiting on that answer, but that's why we're encouraging everybody to act now.
Okay, this is not a question. We have a hard time here in Spring Lake just getting them to come out to vote. So I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, yes, Alderwoman Cooper.
thank you. I just first want to thank you all for coming out. I know this is so important. My question is there any way one of you all can get me the number for the census tracts that are in Spring Lake that are the undercounted? I know they've been historically undercounted, if I'm not mistaken. And if you could get me, someone could send me those track numbers so I can try to get some people in those areas. Because I have been trying to work on the census. And I constantly post our percentage. So hopefully we'll do better this year. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, we'll definitely work on that, ma'am, and thank you for your request. That's the type of collaboration that the complete count committee for the county was designed for. We were designed to support our townships, our municipalities, because what benefits Spring Lake benefits the entire county. So, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we thank each of you for this extended time in your day to help take care of Spring Lake. And may you all enjoy the rest of the evening. And we thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. All right.
Y'all have a good evening now.
Yeah, good night.
thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, new business, 9B, consideration of May 25th, as to what we want to meet. But before a motion or this discussion comes, an email was sent out today, and this is about meeting. An email was sent out today for the next budget meeting. And what was the question on that date?
I'm in fresh. It's in Thursday or Friday.
And what was the date on it?
Some people have appointments on that Thursday, doctor's appointments and things of that
I think it was
nature.
Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, what was the date?
The 21st
May
or the
21st.
22nd.
The 21st, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the 22nd one, but I did get the one for the 21st.
Okay, so, as we consider what we're going to do on May 25th, we need to also consider, while we're talking about dates, whether the next budget workshop will be the 21st or the 22nd. So,
You send it out the same day.
well, some of us can't make it the 21st. How many of us can make it the 22nd? I can make it the 22nd, but not the 21st.
That'd be Friday.
That'd be Friday.
8 to 11.
So 2 of us can, and nobody else raised their hands, so I guess.
What
Oh.
dates now?
That would be Friday,
22nd,
the
yeah, on Friday.
22nd.
I think that's
Okay. And if we can't do it in person, we can always Skype, or Zoom, right? So is there?
What is the time? 8 to 1, you said?
No, it'd be 8 to 11, May the 22nd, that Friday morning.
Oh yeah, I'm good on that Friday morning. 5:22, yeah. I'm good from 8 to 11.
Okay. So, got consensus then? May 22nd, 8 to 11, the next budget meeting?
8 to 8 o'clock, right?
Yes. Okay. And those who can't, well, please. Okay, now the matter that's printed in our agenda, consideration of May 25th, as to whether you'll meet or not meet. Alderman O'Gara and Alderwoman Sutton.
I make a motion to cancel the meeting on the 25th. Being it's Memorial holiday.
Alderwoman Sutherland rang in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second that motion.
All right, moved and second that we cancel. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Question.
Question.
Say again, ma'am. Question?
I was just saying, question.
Oh, okay. Well, I think you're still on delay slightly, but that's a fault. All in favor of canceling the May 25th regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Sign of nay. All right, meeting is therefore canceled. 9C, budget amendment 2020.5, Mr. Gerald.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. I have before you, resolution 2025. That resolution is to accept the grant funding from, Cumberland County Community Development Block Grant. That is the grant that we received regarding the Mitchell Street project. So I ask that you accept the resolution as written.
Alderwoman Jackson.
I make a motion that we accept the resolution for the budget amendment 2020.
Alderman O'Gara.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we accept the budget amendment 20.5 Initiative Street Sewer Project. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, sign of nay. Thank you. The town response to the local government commission letter, which we received as the board and mayor on April 23rd. Upon receiving this letter, I asked Mr. Hankins to draft our response to this. He did, and simultaneously Mr. Gerald also drafted. So I think what you have, the letter that you received, would be primarily written by Mr. Hankins with an element added by Mr. Gerald. Ladies and gentlemen, have you had the opportunity to read the letter? Alderwoman Sutherland?
Mr. Mayor, I did, later, we didn't meet to discuss this, and my name is on there. I would like to have my name removed. I'll be sending in my letter separately. I've already contacted him. So I'd like my name to be removed off of this letter, because I did not meet, to talk about this letter, and I don't know what you put, attorney.
Well, none of us met to discuss the letter. That's one reason.
I thought somebody said that we had a meeting and we met.
No, ma'am. Well, let me say,
That's what they told me.
I didn't meet with anybody.
Right.
I asked Mr. Hankins.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Gerald Alford. I did not meet with anybody.
Right. I didn't either. But it was stated that we did meet, but I didn't meet.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I believe you all can regard this as a draft, a proposed letter for the board to send in response to the letter from the local government commission staff. That letter to the town from Sharon Edmondson, who's the director of the fiscal management section in the state local finance division. She's the principal staff person to the local government commission. Her letter specifically asked that responses to the letter, and she asked several questions and asked for specific responses to those several questions. But her letter said responses should be on the town's letterhead, signed by all board members. So ideally, you all can discuss this, alter it as you see fit, and then all sign on to the same letter. If you're not able to do that, her letter does say responses, plural, should be on the town's letterhead, signed by board members. So I suppose an individual letter from one or more of you would be acceptable to her. I suspect she would rather see a consensus letter signed on to by all of you, if possible.
And I, as a person, don't think there's anything better than a consensus letter from the 6 members who have been addressed in this letter from Ms. Edmondson. But, you know, we are in a free country, land of the free and home of the brave. So if that's not the case, I'll sign once the final draft is done, and we'll go from there.
So you're gonna make the final draft, is that attorney? You stated you're gonna do a final draft? Is that what you said?
I'm happy to do a final
Okay,
draft,
once it's
or
done.
ask Ms. Ferreira to do it with whatever changes the board sees fit to make to the draft. I can assure you that as far as I know, the letter is factually correct. I believe it is responsive to the questions that she asked. Mr. Gerald's primary additions were some more comments about the one of her questions about fund balance, and at least maintaining, if not increasing, fund balance amount.
Okay, I'll respect it.
And, Mr. Hankins, when do you think you could have a final draft?
If you all make no changes to it, it is easy, here it is. If you all make some changes, it's a matter of just quickly incorporating those and turning the letter around.
So the changes that we wanted to put on there, since it was address us, and then we get it to you, you can make the, final draft then. So is it a time limit?
If you all right here right now instruct us to make changes, then we'll pencil those in, and whoever gets to a computer first can make those changes. So,
So let us, anyone else have anything to add to this request? We're doing it, I think, in the proper setting here.
clearly, staff working with the town's independent auditor is a very important matter required by law. There had been discrepancies, there had been delays in the past couple of fiscal years. The town and the staff and the auditor working together need to do better. The letter addresses that, pledges to do better, pledges to cooperate, continue to cooperate, so that first of all, the audit for the fiscal year that ended on June 30, 2019 can be completed very soon. Letter that we sent, the town sent in January, expressed a hope that that audit report can be completed, submitted by the end of May. I've not talked to the auditor about whether that still might be possible. What I said in here was, we hope and expect that that audit report will be submitted by the end of June, next month. And then, obviously, the current fiscal year ends on June 30. So pretty soon after that, the work needs to start between the staff, primarily the interim finance officer, and the independent auditor to complete that audit and get that report submitted to the LGC. As soon as the auditor submits the audit report for fiscal year 2019, then just as he did a month or so ago, he needs to present that audit report for that year to the board. And then when the audit is completed and submitted for fiscal year 2020, which is about to end, when that report is completed and prepared, he needs to present that report to the board. And then you all will be back on schedule.
So basically you're saying we need to sit here for 3 reports this year.
That's right. Which is unprecedented, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Gerald has been working with the interim finance director. Do you have any input as to where we are in terms of meeting this June 30th deadline for the 2018-19 audit?
It's going to be close. What makes it so hard is we're also working on budget. So if we make it, it'll be right on that day or a little bit after. So we're pushing to get it done.
Now, if we're saying June 30th, now, if you're saying it's going to be a little bit after, I think in all honesty, we need to change this date in that last
I
paragraph.
fudged a little bit, I said we hope and expect, and say we pledge to have it submitted, because I didn't know. But
So you asking for another week, perhaps?
I think so, Jimmy, I think we would like to have some cushion. But we'll try to make that date. We're working 90 days.
Is there any more help needed to make this happen?
No, I mean, we kind of don't have time to train them up. So we have to get all the debits and credits in. So that's why we cut off spending. So now we're getting all the debits and credits in. That sets the bank account numbers.
And nobody else can do the debits and credits?
Right, they would have to be trained to do that.
Besides, on the letter that the LGC stated on the, second page, the last paragraph, they stated they, would recommend, but it's up to the board, that you get your audit firm to come in to help us get our, finances together. They did state that on the letter as well, that already are trained.
would you all like to change that June 30 date to maybe July 15th, 2 weeks later?
Yeah, just that later.
That's fair.
That's in the paragraph at the bottom of page 1. It was really, can be submitted.
Well, I don't think we need to submit a date that we don't know that we can meet, because it would make us look worse.
Right.
So I would suggest that we change it to July 15th.
I think the consensus around the attendees matches yours. And it would be nice if we could get it in a few days, at least a few days early. I mean, nothing pleases any child at Christmas except to get that Christmas gift early. So July 15th is the target date. Well, actually, June 30th is the target date.
Right.
But we're asking for some grace.
Right.
Correct. Okay. Okay, well. Okay. And so,
Did we do a motion for the 25th already?
did we do a motion for what, 25th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, oh, yeah, we did. I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we need a motion here for this, response, do we?
No.
I heard one no. Okay, all right. Okay. Item, 9E, Alderman Cooper.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to, mention this. I had a conversation with the mayor, because there aren't gonna be any formal graduations. I thought it would be nice if we, at the least, mention the names of graduates from, Spring Lake, because, you know, there's not gonna be any type of formal celebration. And so he and I agreed that we would, I would ask Rhonda to have it put on the website so that we could gather names. We hadn't made any plans or anything, but if you all want to support this, and maybe we do a drive around to the different addresses, you know, other than just the names being mentioned, but even a drive around to their addresses to drop off a gift bag or a card. But I thought that that would be a good thing for the board to do for our citizens this year.
I think that'll be great to have some type of recognition, but, you saying to, I mean, I've seen the drive-by with certificate, you send a gift bag. I mean, what kind of particulars are you talking about? I do think they should have a recognition, and are you gonna get the names together from, how do we know who the graduates are?
Well, we're working on gathering the names, and I reached out to a couple of places like the schools and the Ministerial Alliance, and I've just actually asked on Facebook and just asked other people who know of students that have graduated But I thought it would be a good thing if our board members recognized those individuals. We don't, I mean, doesn't, I'm making my own gift backs for them. But, I just thought it would be a really good thing if we recognize those individuals here in town, since they can't have a formal graduation. And if we don't even do the drive around, we can at least acknowledge them at a board meeting and say their names.
I think that would be great. We just wanna make sure we don't leave out anyone, get to all the names.
I think too, to just recognize them by name without give back, because what we do there is, once we set that precedent, then the class of 2021, and some naysayers will say, well, you did it for them, and you did, you know. So if we as a board recognize them either at a meeting, as we have done, our students, successfully, then we can do that if there's no, financial obligation on behalf of the board. Alderman O'Gara.
I agree with you 100%, Mayor. I was thinking like, if we try to do a drive-by, then we're looking at requiring people to be at their homes at specific time when we come by, and it's just too much into that. Thank you.
And to recognize them by name publicly is something that I don't recall this town having done before, so that's a good, that's still a good initiative. Alderwoman Sullivan.
Recognize them by name, and if you wanna, I've seen a lot of, towns, they are doing drive-by, and they just, if you wanna just do a circle of Main Street and our first responders and a few of us, just saying we recognize our 2020, graduates. I mean, I think that would might be sufficient, but not drive by their homes, because we don't know who all they are. But just collectively, if we want to just do, and then say we want to recognize our, 2020 graduates. Because a lot of people are doing it because of this, COVID-19. But anyway, I'll support that, but I just don't want to do drive by their homes.
So it's okay with the board if, Alderwoman Cooper initiates this, minus the drive-by? Is that what we hear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, minus the drive-by, Alderwoman Cooper.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. All right, we will entertain a motion, to go into closed session. Alderwoman, Jackson.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session to discuss personnel.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded, we go into closed session, pursuant to GS 143-318, 11H6. Personnel. You've heard the motion, are you ready for the question? All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, sign of nay.
Okay, it's on now.
Alderman O'Gara.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Alderwoman Jackson.
I second that motion.
It has been moved and second that we adjourn this meeting for tonight.
Is my light
Did,
still?
no. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, sign of nay. Ayes have it. We'll be back.